Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sparking Change with Gigi. I am so excited to have you here and to bring our next guest on the show. Today's show is about changing your story so that you can change your life. And, like I said in my post, is we have the pen to write the story that we want. But what does it take? And it really takes the first step is you to make the decision. So today we're going to learn about how can we make that first step. And my guest, Lefford Faith, is an amazing, amazing coach who has helped many people around the world to take that first step to help them see that they're not the story that they keep telling themselves from that little voice. And he helped me to also recognize that from one sentence, he helped me to say my new story or what my story was and what it is now. We met at the Napoleon Hill Institute. I'm a coach, he's a master coach, and again, he's making an impact on this world. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on Faith Lefford. Hello, my friend.
What's up, sis? How you
Oh
doing?
my goodness, I am so excited for you to be here.
Oh, I'm
In a second, you changed my story, and that is an impact that is emotional and it will always stay with me. Um, but please, I want you to introduce yourself, tell us what you do, and tell us some of your story.
all right. Well, thank you very much. My name is Lefford Fate, as it says. I'm the CEO and president of It's Your Fate Life Coach, and I'm a speaker, trainer, coach. I work for the city of Sumter. I'm a support services director. Um, I spent nearly 31 years in the United States Air Force, and I retired as a command chief master sergeant. So I've traveled the world, done a lot of cool things. But I think honestly, my favorite job title is husband, father, and grandfather. Um, that is amazing, and it goes right into what we're talking about today. Change your story, change your life, because there's been several times that I've defined myself as this, not that, or that, not this, and so it's just it says in my favorite book, "Do not be transformed by this world, but don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." And when we take control of our mind, we can take control of our story. And when we change our story, we can change our life. So that is what I help people do, to see who they really are, because we all get to define our own stories.
I love that. I know in your bio, you have, great leader once said, and I'm reading it verbatim, the two greatest days in a person's life is the day that we're born and the day that we discover why we're born, which is similar to what Gandhi said, right?
Yeah.
The day we are born and the day we discover, who we are.
Yeah, because Giovanna, what's amazing to me about that is when we grow up as young people, and as a coach, you kind of get this. When we're young, people pour all this information into our heads, and we don't have discernment at a young age. So they could tell you all kind of stuff. And it'd be really cool if there's pointing, you're a good boy, you're a good girl, you're a smart boy, you're a smart girl, you're gonna be great, you're not. But most of us don't get that, Giovanna. Most of us get in there, oh, that was bad, or you shouldn't have done that, and no, and stop. And so early on, we get all this stuff poured into our head, right?
Yeah.
And so that comes out over time. But the beautiful thing about it, as we get older, we have the ability to discern, and we can receive and we can reject different things. And so one of the things I like doing is helping people record their story.
Yes, absolutely. I know that I studied Dr. Bruce Lipton, and he wrote the book Biology of Belief. And
Yes.
in that book, it's like he states the first 6 to 7 years of our lives is when we really determine that really make up who we are. the genetic of what we can do and what we can do from those experiences we had at a very early age, because some of them are an emotional impact to us, right?
Yeah.
If a teacher told you you're no good, or made a remark, or a friend told you you were fat, it stays in your subconscious mind. It's like a file in your programming, that every time you want to do something, that particular memory comes back. So it kind of holds you from moving forward. Um, so
Giovanna,
yeah,
when I
I
was
definitely. I'm sorry. Go
go
ahead.
ahead. No, when I was in the seventh grade, um, and this, I was a little older than 7 or 8 years old, but when I was in seventh grade, I had a situation that it it damaged me as a young kid. I was a rather rambunctious child, what you might call us today. I was bad. I was running around. I couldn't stop talking. Not much different than when you've met me, right? So I, I was running around. I was talking. I was acting up. I was talking to my friends, and I was in the lunchroom. And my teacher, I'll call him Mr. P, to protect the innocent, right, or the guilty. And he yelled out, "Lefford, come here!" And you know what? It seems like 1,000 eyes turned towards me. I know there was probably only 200 or 150 to 200 kids, but it felt like everybody just looked at me. And I kind of scurried over there to Mr. P. And he said, "You already got two strikes against you. You're poor and you're black. If you keep going like you're going, you're going to strike out of this game called life." And Giovanna, I got to be honest with you. I went for most of my childhood and many years in adulthood worried about striking out. And
I believe it.
this is what I'm looking at. If you look at, I don't know if you play baseball or watch baseball, you could tell when somebody's up at bat, they're getting ready to swing. But this was me. Remember, in the seventh grade, I was told I had two strikes against me. So when an opportunity came up, like, hey, I can ask this girl to go to the prom, but I'm not going to swing because I might strike out. I can go to this class. Well, I want to go for this AP class. I was like, nope, because if I swing, I might strike out. I can go be an officer in the Air Force. I said, no, I can't swing because I might strike out. So I went plenty of years where I'm holding the bat, scared and small because of what somebody said to me when I was an adult, when I was a kid. And as an adult, I held on to that. Um,
I
but
can. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
but I
Finish your
redefined my
story.
story. I redefined my story and realized that I might strike out this inning, but that doesn't mean I'm striking out of life. But I had to reframe that story, right?
I
Because
love that.
and some people get stuck on that story that they were told when they were a child and they can't get past it. That's one of the things that I get a chance to do to help people blow that up. That's what, being a part of NHI and being a part of this listening to these principles, we are refining our lives and our story. I love
Absolutely. And I'm going to go into the story that you let me open up, because I had the same thing when I was in second grade. I had kids making fun of me, but I'm not going to tell you the whole story. So I'm just going to play the story that I changed.
Hello, everyone. My name is Giovanni. Nope, my name is Giovanna. Wait, I did change that. It's Joanne. And I also have Gigi. You're probably wondering, what am I doing with all those names? Well, those names all have an identity. Allow me to explain. Giovanni was the name I was supposed to have because my mother thought I was going to be a boy. She wanted to name me after my grandfather. Well, when I made my debut, she dropped that I and added the A, and I became Giovanna. Giovanna and her family came here to the United States from Italy. And as an immigrant, at the age of 8, I entered into the school system, the public school system. And every day we were tortured. Well, I was tortured. My brothers and sisters were tortured because we were made fun of. It was very hard to adjust. We were living with a dictionary in our pocket. Everywhere we went, we carried it, just like you carry your cell phone, to understand, to communicate, and to learn the language. But day in and day in and day out, we were tortured. So I decided that my sister and I was going to change our names. My sister's name was Madalena, and she changed her name to Marilyn after Marilyn Monroe. She was so excited. And I changed my name. I had an option actually. When I looked up in the dictionary, it was Jean, Joan, or Joanne. I was so excited to see Joanne because that was my second grade teacher. I was like, great, finally, I have an English name and no one's going to know I'm Italian. So I went and I had everybody call me Joanne. I would introduce myself as Joanne. I would tell at home, do not call me Giovanna. You need to call me Joanne. And truly, my own family called me Joanne. They forgot all about Giovanna. I think I was only being called Giovanna when they were mad at me. But anyway, for years and years and years, I was called Joanne. Well, Joanne came with the new identity. Joanne had to build an identity that wasn't herself. So I worked very hard to create a name for myself. Went to school at night, worked during the day, master's degrees, one in banking, one in education, a real estate license, esthetician license. I kept going, I kept learning. Until one day, Joanne got that phone call. I said, I'm sorry, Joanne, you have cancer. Well, if that wasn't a wake-up call, I don't know what was. But that was a call for me to say, you need to go back to be who you truly are, Giovanna. And you need to have the faith that everything is going to be okay. And I did. My faith needed to be the only thing that carried me forward. And this is what we learn in the Napoleon Hill Principles of Success. Every day I'm learning it. Every day I'm reminding myself, don't change who you are. Be your true self. That is when you really enjoy life. So, I ask you, are you changing your identity? Did you change your identity? Because if you did, take a deeper look. Do you like the identity that you chose? Because I know for me, I chose it to make someone else happy, not myself. Now, I'm making myself happy. I'm going back to my original name, my given name. And I love it. And Gigi, oh, I love that because I have a show right now. It's called Sparking Change with Gigi. Because I am sparking change, helping people see the truth of who they are and their true potential. And they don't need to be anything else but who.
Oh, I think we're stuck.
They were born to be.
Well, I'm going to bring us back. Well, that story.
Yeah, I love that story.
But it's so true. It's so true. We change who we are for someone else. And when we do that, we forget who we truly are because we become someone that we're not. And that is why many, many people are facing challenges and adversities in their life because it's they're trying to be something that they can't be. They really don't want to be.
Right.
Right. So please, let's go into. I love your for real. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, let's talk about for real. But let me say first, I love the story. I love it because I remember when you were telling us about you. That it for folks that don't know, it was you were talking about all the names that you had been called during your life. And I asked you, I said, tell me about these names. Where did they come from? And then and we're in a storytelling speaking course where you're working on you're an excellent communicator anyway, but you were working, and
Thank you.
it helped me understand who you were by the story that you told, the story that you actually lived. So I fell in love with it. And when you just told it again, it's almost like I'm right back on that Saturday morning in that program, hearing you tell it for the first time. So it's powerful. My acrostic for real is something that I apply to everything in my life. And especially when it comes to the stories that you tell the world. This is, I can say for real is how I tell my story. And the PH in for real is your philosophy, right? What is your philosophy? Who are you? What are you about? What do you know? And what do you do with what you know? Right. And so my philosophy about my story now, not when I was a kid, but now that I'm an adult, is that I'm enough and I get to decide what my story is going to be. And Giovanna, it took me a long time to figure that out. I'll tell you a quick side
I believe
story.
it.
I was in Sweden speaking at an event, and I was telling the story of a 56-year-old African American male in my experience in the United States. And I was telling this story, and I showed a picture of me and President Obama. We were at an event and we were shaking hands. And so the lady was raised her hand. She said, "You know Obama?" I'm like, "Yeah." "Well, that doesn't sound like the story you told us." I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" She said, "The story you told us is that you were poor and you didn't have all the stuff you needed and all this other stuff. So, but you know Obama." So somebody was actually gave me feedback on my story, right? And what, so my whole philosophy is I'm enough and I can tell my own. So that's one thing. You got to have a philosophy. You got to figure out who you are and your story. You can decide it. The R stands for relationship. Everything, everything that's anything is developed is depends on your relationships. Relationships matter, Giovanna. Take care of your relationships and they'll take care of you. Your personal relationships, your professional relationships. One of the reasons I get here to talk to you today is a relationship that we've developed based on this organization that we're in. So that's, but you got philosophy, you got relationships, that's not enough. We got to equip ourselves. If we want to live our best lives, if we want to do the best we can, we must equip ourselves. And what does equip mean? We have to train, educate ourselves, put ourselves in the right group of people so that we
Absolutely.
can live our best life, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so you're equipping yourself. But then next, with the equipping, you could be the smartest, most beautiful, handsomest, hardest working person in the world. But the A stands for attitude. And you know, like I know, we got to have a positive mental attitude. And my positive mental attitude says that if I hear two things, or if I hear a thing, I can look at it as a positive or I can look at it as a negative. My choice. So what is your attitude? And I choose positive mental attitude in all things. And the L stands for leadership. John Maxwell says that everything rises and falls on leadership, and it really does. How you go as a mother, as a father, as a boss, as an employee, how you lead yourself is how that organization is going to go. So I say all the time, it is my story for real. And that's kind of
Love
how
it.
life. And so I said, how do you want to live your life? How do you
And it
want to live?
all starts by making a decision, right? It
Exactly.
all starts with, I am ready to change, or I'm ready to do this, or I'm ready to do that. But it's a decision that only you can make for yourself, and then follow that decision with action,
Mass
with
action.
action, and being committed to it. Because once you have a commitment to what you want to do, you're like you're taking everybody out of the picture, and you're just moving forward, right? All the negativity that you're going to come across, the people who are not going to cheer you on, you're not going to, again, keep staying focused on what your goal is and what you really want. But obstacles, you will be tested. You will be tested. But we're going to take a small commercial break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to talk about um, the steps the steps that they can take to start to write their own story. Okay,
Amen.
so we'll be right back.
That
Back
was
there, it was a
great.
quick
I
one.
like that.
So, I know that change is getting out of your comfort zone. Change is not easy, but it's also what we say to ourselves, because our words are very, very powerful. What we think, what we say, will manifest into our reality. And I am a true believer in that, because I see it over and over again with evidence. So, but let's go into, how do we pick up that pen? And what's the first step do we do when we say, okay, I'm ready for change? Here's my pen, here's my pad. What's step number one?
Well, I'll start it with a little riddle for you, Giovanna. If you have 10 frogs on a log and six decide to jump off, how many frogs are left?
You want me to answer? You have
Yep.
six, and how many jump off?
You have 10 frogs on a log
10.
and
Okay.
six decide to jump off. How many frogs are left on the log?
Should be 4.
Good answer, but it's wrong. Just because you decide to do something doesn't mean you're going to do something unless you
I
take.
knew I shouldn't have answered that. I knew it.
No, but that's what most, but again, that's what most people
Just
say.
kidding.
And you're right. It makes sense. But how many times have you decided to do something? I decided I'm gonna diet. I decided I was gonna work out. I decided I was gonna read every day. I decided, but just because you decide means nothing until you make action. But you have to make the decision and then you got to take the next step. So it was a little bit of a trick question, but but we get it. But
It's,
so
excuse me, but it's like 1 plus 1 is 3, not 2, right?
very
Do you remember
well.
that one?
Yes, very well can be that. Right. So
Well,
go ahead.
no, I was going to say we'll give the answer why we say that at the end,
Yeah.
because probably people are thinking that's not true, right?
They're like, where are they from? They don't know how to count. um,
Okay.
but the thing for me, there's a step. There's basically like 6 steps to do anything. And especially when you're talking about telling your story. First, you gotta have a desire of what you want your story to be. I worked in the prison system for a while. I was the deputy director of health services for the South Carolina Department of Correction. I had 22,000 inmate patients, and it was a pretty big deal job. And one of my things I realized is there were a lot of people that were in the prison system that had a life sentence, like real life sentence. They did something and they're going to be in prison for the rest of their lives. But as I was learning about that process and watching these people go back and forth through their day, I realized something that I'd heard before, but I didn't internalize it. That all of us have a life sentence. All of us have a life sentence. It's just on us to write that sentence. Giovanna, you gonna let somebody else write your sentence, so you're gonna write your own?
Absolutely.
You got to write your own sentence. So what is that life story? What do you want your life to be? What do you want your life to be? And then once you decide that you know what your life wants to be, then you have to develop a burning desire. You can't just kind of want it, you got to really want it. So if I want to be a master coach for I want to be the premier Napoleon Hill trainer in the world. I gotta want that real bad because it's just going to require a lot, right? So what is it that you want really bad that you got a burning desire towards? The second
Yeah.
thing is when you make that decision and you start moving out, you got to say, what am I willing to give and to do to live the life that I want to live, to have the story that I want to have. That's two,
Absolutely.
because you get the world hates vacuums. They also hate it also hates somebody wanting something for nothing. That's one of the quotes from Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson said, "It's a sad day when a man or woman decides that they're gonna get something without putting anything in." Right? So
Absolutely.
what am I willing to give to have the story that I want to live? Right? That's powerful. So and again, if you put a little bit of fire in, you're gonna get a little bit of heat, Devonna. If you put a lot of fire in there, you're gonna get a lot of heat. What do you want? Right? What are you gonna
Absolutely.
do? Okay. Third thing, you got to have faith that your story will be realized. You got to have faith. Faith is a real hard thing, it's personally. I grew up in the church. I have faith, but I had that kind of faith that was like, I'm gonna call on them when I need something, but I didn't always have faith in stuff, right? Also had that kind of faith where you just pray, 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 and then maybe you'll get a bike. I was more a beggar than a prayer, right? So, but you had to have this level of faith. And Giovanna, I actually have faith in other people. I had more faith in you than I had in myself. I had more faith in my friends than I had in myself. I had more faith in my family than I had myself. But for you to write your story, you gotta believe this and know this to the depths of
And
your
you're going
soul.
to get it.
Yeah, you're gonna get it, and that you can get it, and that you're enough to have it. Because you know what happens if you say you want something but you really don't believe you're gonna get it? You're not gonna
And
get it.
I'll share with you on with my business Sparking Change, right? It was like, I know I want to make an impact in this world. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I've been given a second chance in life for a reason, for me to go and help others know that they can have that second chance too. And I didn't know how, I promise you. But I remember I said, show me, because I know you're going to use me. And Cleona and Napoleon Hill Institute came into my life.
Mm.
I had enough faith that my mission to help people live a happier lives, because this world, many people are not happy because they don't have enough faith, because we're looking at the outside, controlling the inside of how we feel. And when I said, you know what, I'm going to do whatever it takes, I'm going to be determined, then nothing is going to stop me. No one and nothing. And here I am. Here I am meeting beautiful people, people that are lifting me up to do the job that I want to do. And what makes me happy is to see other people happy. That's where my joy comes. That's where my fulfillment comes. It doesn't, it used to come from the Louis Vuitton bag. I'm not going to lie. But now the joy comes more from seeing people being happy. To take someone who thinks I mean, this morning I spoke to someone who said, I really wanted to kill myself. And
Mm,
I'm like, no, do not say that, because you're looking at the circumstances. You deserve to live. Let's change your story. What's going on?
yeah.
And this is what I love about Napoleon Hill. We all changed our stories by learning the principles of success.
Right. And also you're changing your story. Uh, what I'm hearing is such beautiful stuff. You're changing your story as being you're talking about transform yourself and transform your world. When you transform your world, you're also affecting other people because you were somebody that that person came to at the right time. Because if they didn't see you, if they didn't meet you, they could have made another decision. They could have made a permanent decision on a temporary situation. And so there is a purpose. There's a reason that you're here. We got to believe that. That's got to be a knowing, right? So
Yeah.
now you got faith in yourself and in the world and in the people around you that you'll get there. Then we got to write a plan. Now, because if you would never build a house this way, I just want a house and then just start putting sticks and bricks and twigs together. No, you have to develop a plan. So there's short-term, intermediate, and long-term goals, right? What is the plan for you to go from here to here? Now, I know a lot of people are like, jump and grow your wings on the way down. I'm not that dude. I'm not that dude. This is the kind of dude I am. I'm here. I want to go here. What is my next step? And what are all the steps that I need to get there? Now, I know for a fact, and Martin Luther King said this, Martin Luther King, the great Martin Luther King Jr. said, to get to the top of the steps, you don't have to see the whole staircase. You just got to see the first step. So when I'm talking about planning, this is where I am. This is where I want to go. These are my next steps. And so we got to have a plan. And the cool thing that Napoleon Hill said, the plan you make doesn't have to be a great plan.
Right.
When you
And it can
start,
be changed along the way.
it can be changed along the way. It can be built along the way. Because sometimes you know how it is. You're going in one direction on your GPS, right? You go in one direction, there's a road closure. Yeah, you could just sit there for 2 days until they fixed it, or you can turn around and go a different direction. And that's what this whole thing is with planning. We have to plan our lives, right? People, I don't know who said it, but it was kind of cool. People don't plan to fail, but they fail to plan. And when they fail to plan, they end up where they don't want to go, driving what they don't want to drive, being with who they don't want to be with, right? So we have to put some plans into action and let those plans be flexible. And there was a documentary on the book 3 Feet from Gold that Dr. Greg Reed did. Don Green was actually in that book, and they interviewed Truett Cathy, the mogul for Chick-fil-A, and and Mr. Cathy said that sometimes you're walking down this direction and you will walk into a bike or a skateboard. Your plan didn't have a bike in there, but if
Yeah.
God presents a bike to you, get on the bike and ride it, right? So you got to have a plan, but that makes sense, and you just got to keep reevaluating the plan. Don't change your goal. Go for your goal, but
Right.
change the plan so you can get there faster and better. Um, Jim Rohn often said that when he was alive, that you're the average of the 5 people you spend most time with. We call that a
Oh, I
teamwork.
believe that.
Yeah, we call that teamwork, or we call that a mastermind. If you're going to rewrite your story, who are the other characters in that story? Who are they, and what are they doing to and for you? Right. So you gotta make sure you put the right people in your mind. There have been times in my life, Giovanna, I didn't have the right people in my life. And I'm not better than anybody, but I'm not worse than anybody. But what I did was there were some people that I had in my life that they weren't lifting me up. And actually, I,
Exactly.
I
Mhm.
had some people in my life that when I wanted to grow, they want to pull me down. Like every time I go up, they pull me down because they said, I want you to be here with me. We're going to do this together in our misery. You don't want people like that. You want a circle where when you look around, I think I want somebody
Of
in
course.
front of me so I can strive for. I want somebody behind me that I can lead, and I want people by my side that I can lean on when I need it, right? So
I
that is
love
the
it.
environment that we want to be in. And you need to put yourself in a circle like that. Ask yourself the
Yeah.
question, who am I around? Who am I
Your
around?
tribe is very important, right? Your tribe is very important because it's where they're going to lead you to where you want to go, right? And when you're stuck, you can count on them. You
Right,
can, get, if you don't have a talent or a skill, someone in that tribe might have that for you. So you always want to be surrounded around with people who, I'll probably say it, are probably smarter than we are, just to give you that extra, you know, information you need to get you where you need to be.
yeah. None of it, we will never live long enough to know and learn everything, right? So there, we have to put
Yeah.
people in our corner that they're specialists on it. I don't know anything about TV, and you're an expert on this. You're doing a great job of interviewing. So if you're waiting on me to do this, we'd be in trouble, Giovanna. So we both got different levels of skills, right? And so we bring that together, and we can make something beautiful. I tell you, it's
Well,
powerful, powerful, powerful words.
all big, all big companies, right? Were done with people underneath. Like all success stories have a tribe behind them,
Right.
right? We don't do it alone. And sometimes we feel like we have to do it alone. And so that throws us off and then we give up. Like, you
Yeah.
know what? I just can't do this anymore. Well, this is it's a habit, it's a belief that you have to do it alone, and you
Right.
don't. And like right now I'm living proof of it, because where I'm moving to and what am I doing, I'm not doing this alone. I'm doing with people who are supporting me, loving me, and bringing me forward to where I want to go, because I know before I leave this earth, I'm going to spark some change. I'm going to impact this world, because I do want to leave a legacy. Why? Because I know serving people to lift them up is probably the most rewarding job. When I did special ed for students with autism, every day I went to work because I knew I was making a difference in those kids' lives.
Yeah.
And I remember, as one little story, I became a science teacher, which I don't know how I got that, but I became a science teacher. And being that I was in the beauty business, an esthetician, we wear the white robe, right? We wear that white robe as to look nice and clean. So I took these robes as a science teacher and I put them on my students. I put goggles on them, even though they had autism. I looked beyond the physical body and said, these are beautiful souls and we're going to have fun. And I went to get goggles and the white robe, and we went outside, and it was foliage in September. It was about touching different types of leaves and rocks. And we had such a great time. And everybody was like, oh my God, look at what she's doing. Well, I did that because, to me, what's more fulfilling is to see other, like I said, other people happy. And these kids just brought so much joy to my life. And that's what I'm here to do. That's why I know my purpose is here to serve. How? I don't even want to know how, because it's going to be shown to me, because I do have the faith. And, I'm lay mentor Bob Proctor says, you don't have to know how. Just keep going. And for me, miracles are happening in my life, for sure. Meeting wonderful people, and I'm being shown the path. So it's all about that. And this is my story. This
There
is
you
my
go.
new story,
And you
and
know what? There was a scientific study that talked about the flip of the coin, and it was basically if you're lucky or unlucky. People who felt that they were lucky felt that they can call a coin toss more often than somebody who didn't. People who felt that they were unlucky thought that they would get less positive coin flips. And it was all in a state of mind, because basically it was equal almost all the time. But the people that thought positive, they felt better. It was their story. Their story was that I'm a lucky person. The unlucky people, their story was that they were unlucky people. So our story determines what we tell ourselves about people and life, and how people treat us comes to pass, right? So it's hugely, in my opinion, it's hugely important that we tell ourselves the right story. The right story.
Absolutely. Words are powerful.
Yep.
Let's
Yep.
take a quick break and another commercial break, and we'll come right back and we'll continue how to create this powerful story.
Now, the vast majority, approximately 95% of the people of all countries, go around and around without aim or purpose. They drift with the circumstances of life, good or bad.
A drifter is one who permits himself to be influenced and controlled by circumstances outside of his own mind.
Whereas the successful individuals create their own circumstances and ride them to victory.
When you're on purpose, you're living on purpose. You will never quit if you have a real purpose.
A burning desire to be and to do is the starting point from which the dreamer must take off. But what I have done has been recorded, it's been tested, it's being taken to a free world, and it's going to benefit millions of people who are not yet born.
And it's going to benefit millions of people who are not yet born. We're some of those people. That we're spreading this to the world. As your awareness grows, the doubt is gone, so that you can manifest whatever it is your heart desires. Isn't that beautiful?
I tell you, my heart, when I joined Napoleon Hill, for me, it was like the missing piece of my life.
Mm.
Truly, it was like, I know where I want to do, I know, but how am I going to do it? And then when Napoleon Hill came into my life, it was like, there's my answer. There's my
Like
answer.
the light came on.
Oh, I want to run, and I want to keep running to see how fast I can meet my goals, because the more I learn, the more I discover, the more I understand that we should live on purpose with a burning desire to do what makes us happy. Life changes, right?
Exactly.
And that's when the story changes.
I love that commercial that was just played, because it basically talks about, people drifting and people leading their lives. And one of the things I believe is that we can live our lives two ways. We can live them by default, or we can live our lives by design. And when we're talking about telling our story is us designing our life. It's not a life isn't to be discovered, it's to be designed. How do we, and then adjusting to how things flow, because this will happen, we'll do this, and then we'll have this opportunity. Good, bad, different. There's still, what is our story? The last thing I want to talk about, because we gave them 5, and I know somebody out there like me, and they're like, you said there were 6 steps. Where's the 6th? The 6th step that I tell people in writing their story is tell your story and then write your story down, and then read that story morning, noon, and night, right? Napoleon Hill actually talks about reading in the morning and reading it at night, but I like to do it morning, noon, and night. Kind of like what we used to do with food. But it says in my favorite book that man should not live by bread alone, right? You got to have more than that. So the nutrition, when you give proper nutrition to your mind, when you feed your brain, your mind, your spirit, then there's so much can happen with you. So those are those six things that we're talking about, or how to write your story and to live your story, to write your life sentence. I want to show you something that I used to teach this when I was early in my Toastmasters journey, and I went to a conference, and this guy was talking about this story, and I brought it back to my club, and I said, imagine, Giovanna, that this is a recording device, right? And say this is what I want you to do. I want you to look at January 1st, 2025. And when you pull this out on 2025, this is your human highlight reel. This is your story that you wrote and you lived. What would be on that film? What are your wins? What are your journeys? What is your certification level? Who have you helped? Where have you gone? What have you done? When you can think that way and say, and you write that down, you will walk into that destiny because you've decided what you're going to be. And the funny thing about the world, the funny thing about infinite intelligence, God, the funny thing about it, if you say this is what it is and you believe hard enough and you emotionalize those beliefs, you're going to look up one day and you're right there. And you'll be like, oh my, well, other people will. Other people will say, oh my goodness, how did she get there? And you'll say, I told you.
You know, it reminds me.
I'm designing my life.
Steve Jobs said, you can connect the dots going back, but you can't connect them going forward. You know, and I know exactly how I got here. And knowing that I have a purpose in life, I know where I'm going. And that is so essential for us to live a happy life, is to create the story, to know where you're going, right? On based on what you want.
Yeah. But Giovanni, can I say something? And this is for everybody. You know, sometimes people are tuned into these things and they'll say, well, of course they can win because they did this and this and this and this, and they got all this stuff together. Listen, y'all, there's been so many years in my life that the story that I was telling was not the story that I needed to be living. My dad used to say, I'm a bad man. I got scars in my head. I've stumbled and fallen and bumped my head so many times and telling myself the story that I'm not enough, that nobody wants to be with me and nobody wants to listen. Nobody's going to read that thing. I can't do this. I was the guy that's telling myself these stories. I was telling myself this story, and it goes back to, if I would, because I know time is limited, I want to go back to 1986. 1986 is what I call the best of times and the worst of times. It was the best of times because my first boy was born. He was born on March 18th, 1986. And I was proud because I was a papa. But on March 4th that same year, my mom passed. She had a massive heart attack. She died before I can be there for her. And so I was up and down. I was in a state of flux and chaos, you know, and I had people in my life, you know, are talking about who's in your life. I had some people in my life that wanted to do good for me, but they weren't. Because Giovanni, I had people telling me, hey, you know what? Your mom's in a better place and that you have a son, so you should be happy. You shouldn't be sad. But I was like, I was devastated because I had lost my mother and it was hard for me to be happy. But then I had other people that I was trying to be happy for because I'm a dad and I had a son, and they were like, I thought you said you loved your mother. I thought she was your favorite. How can you be laughing and joking and cuckooing and all that stuff? If you loved her, you'd be hurting more. And so I was going through this. I was going one way or another. And the thing is, I was in the Air Force at the time. I was a non-commissioned officer. I was a tough guy. So I couldn't cry. I couldn't be sad. I couldn't be emotional. The only emotion that I was allowed to play with in that time of my life was anger and violence. So I was walking around with a chip on my shoulder as big as Texas, looking for a fight. I was hurting so bad I wanted to hurt somebody. And so what happened was I found myself in my supervisor's office, and he lifted up a sheet. It was actually a McDonald's application. And he said, if you keep going to where you're going, this is what you're going to be doing. But at the same time, he said, but I'm not going to allow your stupidity to affect your family. Your son and your wife needs you. Now, again, guys, he wasn't nice to me. He cussed me out. Right. He wasn't nice, but he wasn't kind, but he was the nicest person to me because he made me pull my head out of my butt. And what I did was I started noticing him. That I wasn't cured, but I was changed. I started to watch him, and he always seemed to be getting it right. He there were two things on his desk, Giovanna. He had the Holy Bible and he had a book called Think and Grow Rich. And so when I walked out of there, I started thinking, I said, I need to do what he does. I need to follow what he does because he's happy. Everybody loves him. He's always got this cool smile on his face. He even had time for a knucklehead like me. So I wanted to be that. But what was going on is I was telling myself this story that I was this and I wasn't worthy. I lost my mom. I was losing all these things. But when I went dealing with Sergeant Gunther, I started changing my story. And when I started changing my story, my life started to change. It didn't change overnight, but I started saying I can do. I am this good person. I can work hard. I can get over this. I can feel better. And the more I start telling myself this, I start taking steps and steps and steps. And then I literally walked my way out of depression. I walked my way out of feeling that I didn't need to be here anymore. And it wasn't overnight. It took a lot of nights, but it was worth it.
That's beautiful, beautiful story. And, I think that's what makes us stronger and makes us look forward to, defeat the adversities that we have in our lives, right?
Yeah.
Because we want to be a better version of ourselves every day. Who wants to be worse than the day before?
Right.
But you have to put the work in. You have to put the time, the work, the commitment to make this change and know that it's for the better good, for a better version of yourself.
Well, Giovanna,
I say to
that's the important part about talking about your story, because a lot of people are telling themselves these things and they don't know any different. They don't know better. They're not. Most people aren't intentionally writing a story where they're the villain or they're the victim. They just don't know how to write the story where they're the victor. They don't know. They don't know how to put themselves in the center of their story. Not to be selfish, not to be selfless, but you need to be in the middle of your story. And if you write your story, you can write it how you want it. And let's be honest, I didn't always know this.
No, of course, I didn't either.
There you go. But the cool thing about it is that there's a possibility that we can be better and do better. So we can write our own story. And again, to me, if you can, you want to impact the world, Giovanna, let people understand that they are the masters of their fate, the captains of let them know that for real. And they will change, and then you'll get a chance to sit back and watch. And I think that's one of the most powerful things that we can do.
That is beautiful. I want to bring up your quote that you shared with me because we're almost at the hour. And I think this is beautiful. What you said, life is a creation, not a discovery. You get to create the life you want. Here's the catch. Nobody can create it for you. You get to do it yourself. I love that. I love that because we live in a world that we think the story is being created for us and that life is happening to us. But life is actually happening for us. Right. So you have any final thoughts?
Well, again, I'll never apologize for being a Christian. I love the Lord. This is the deal. I think God has given us all the resources that we need. And that I think he gave us the pen to write our own story, right? And he's given us free will. I got a good friend. He's called a wisdom broker. His name is Wyman. And Wyman says that God will not take our free will and the enemy can't take it. So we have everything we need to go where we want. We just have to craft our story. And then if that is true, Giovanna, if it's true what I just said, what story would you write if you were responsible for your story? Would it be of
Absolutely.
poverty and want, or would it be of abundance and love and joy? The cool thing is we get to make that call, and that's special.
Absolutely. Well, Lefford, I appreciate you so much for coming on today. I think everything that we shared on this show is coming from our hearts, right? And we're looking to have people connect to really what they want. Because once they are connected to what they want, their life can change. But it starts with picking up the pen and rewriting their story. Whatever the past was, but they can create the new story and not look at what happened in the past and start from the beginning. Any day, anytime, whenever they're ready. So I appreciate you, my friend, very much for coming by. And I look forward to more opportunities and getting to know and tapping into your wisdom, because you surely do have a lot to share. And thank you again.
Thank you. You too, my friend.
Thank you, everyone, for watching our show today, and looking forward to more in the future. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you for joining me on Sparking Change with Gigi. I hope that our episode today has ignited a spark within you to create positive change in your own life and in the world around you. To learn more about how you can become a guest or supporter, head over to sparkingchangenow.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing, sharing, and leaving a review. Your feedback is incredibly valuable to me, and it helps me to continue producing content that sparks change in each of us and the world. You can find us on various platforms, including Google Play Store, Apple App Store, YouTube, Facebook, Roku, Android TV, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Thank you again for watching, and I look forward to having you join me again next week on Sparking Change with Gigi.